You're watching Fighting Back, news talk, current events, and political commentary with host Ron Ludders. Now back to the show.
Well, thank you. Thanks for standing by during our commercial break, and we really appreciate that. And of course, I am Ron Ludders, and we're here with Ray Michaels, and of course, the one, the only Josh Bernstein. And we have a very special friend on the line, and it's we're honored to have her. And she holds a title that I don't think anybody wants to hold, and she is a Gold Star mother, and I don't think anybody would want that title. And she's very stoic. I've looked at today. I've spent some time looking at her, and she's been on the show before, and. My gosh, what a wonderful lady. Jenny, are you there?
I am. I'm here. Thank you. It's really nice to be back with you guys.
Okay, this is Jenny Taylor, and she has lost her husband. I believe it was in 2018, Jenny?
Yep, we're coming up on 3 years in a couple more months.
Sorry to hear that, Jenny.
Yes, we're certainly sorry for that, and I've known about your scenario for a long time, and I've always wondered how a woman that has Ray, she has 7 children that are fatherless.
Wow,
and
that's horrible.
Of course, Ray was on the phone with you the other night. Josh was not, and you have agreed to go on the air with us, and we thank you for that. We, as everybody, are questioning why, and especially it even makes it worse with this last group because they were there trying to help people to get them out of the god awful place, and you didn't know, but we just got a report. Josh, you want to share that again with?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, they had dead to rights Predator drone ready to go on the suicide bomber before he detonated himself and took out 13 U.S. servicemen and almost close to 200 people. And the fraudulent pretendency decided not to do it because, quote, they didn't want to upset the Taliban because they were negotiating with them. Imagine that. So absolutely horrific to know, and this is treason. It's U.S. Code 182381, and these people should be court-martialed. Millie should be court-martialed. Austin should be court-martialed. Anyone involved with this decision, or shall I say non-decision, should be court-martialed for what they have done. And of course, the Biden pretendency should resign. It's terrible.
You don't have to comment on that because you've been through this, and God help you for being so strong. I can't even imagine what has gone on in your life, and yet last weekend there was a gentleman from Utah that had perished, and Jenny led the organization of. Gosh, I guess all the way to the governor of the state was at this, I don't know if you could call it a eulogy.
Yeah, well, we just called it a memorial vigil, but it did end up almost feeling a little bit more like a state memorial service. I mean, it wasn't a funeral. Obviously, that will have its time, and we did. I was really proud of Utah that day, and you guys are right. There's a lot wrong with our government right now. There's a lot wrong with some of the decisions either being made or not being made. There's a heck of a lot we've really got to dive in and ask some serious questions. But over this past weekend, I was really proud of my hometown and proud of my community. I know I'm not alone in being reminded that the heart of America is still alive. The heart of America is still strong and beating and proud and heartbroken. But the heart of America, of course, is the people. And so we gathered over the weekend. We had hundreds of people. We had Marines, veterans from all different branches, all different conflicts and wars that are still living. We had this heartbroken family that had literally been at Dover hours before. We flew them straight from Dover to Salt Lake City. They came straight to this vigil. We had our governor, we had our entire federal delegation of senators and congressmen and other state leaders, state legislators, city council people. And I think it was a really strong showing of the fact that America is in the people. We, the people, got together over the weekend to mourn this death that we all feel very strongly could have been prevented and avoided. And yet you ask why, you know, we can never lose sight of the greater why. Why does a soldier or a Marine or a sailor or an airman, why do they run into harm's way? Why are they willing to die trying to save another's life? I think that's the question that I hope is causing all of America to pause right now. We got plenty of questions to ask why and how and who and what in the world happened. I get that. But as we look at those policies and politics and just the madness behind it, I hope we also look at the families and the humanity. And I hope we look at the service and the sacrifice and we ask ourselves, why? Why were those men and women willing to die? We all hoped they didn't die. We hope no one else ever has to die for freedom. But have you ever really asked yourself why they're willing to do it? I hope that question gives America pause. And I hope that as regular everyday citizens out of uniform, we ask ourselves if we're willing to die trying to make the world a better place. Are we willing to live trying to make the world a better place? Those are the questions I find myself asking, hoping my children ask as they grow. I hope, even though they're devastated to grow old without their father here, they're proud of the fact that he literally died trying to make the world a better place. Are we willing to live with the same dedication?
You know, Jenny, just scripturally, it says that the greatest gift you can ever give is to lay down your life for your fellow man.
Absolutely.
And these people who do this, they have a very strong faith. And you brought up a great point, Jenny, in that when these tragedies happen, and you're a perfect example of this, it doesn't just affect that one person who sacrificed. No. It's the family who sacrificed. It's the loved ones, the children, the brothers, the sisters, the mothers, the fathers.
I would say the whole community, the high school buddy, the childhood friend, the college roommate. There's no end. The day my husband died, only one service member died, just him. And it affected hundreds of people. Now we've got 13 who perished in an instant. And I think all 300 million of us are mourning. And I know you guys were talking offline a little bit about how long will America remember this? Or will we get bored and move on? Or will we just forget because we're busy Americans and we kind of move on to the next thing? I think this instance is very different because we almost watched them die. The day my husband died, nobody knew what was going on in Afghanistan until people in my small town found out that he died. This was different. Last week, we were all riveted to the news. We were watching. We went to bed having heard there was threats of an imminent attack. We woke up hearing that an explosion had just happened. We waited throughout the day to know there were casualties and fatalities. We watched this happen in a way very few other battles have unfolded before our eyes. I don't think the American people will ever forget these 13 that died trying to help people get out of that country, out of that airport, and out of that disaster that we all agree shouldn't have ever happened. But let's not lose sight of what those men and women died trying to do.
Jenni,
I don't think we'll ever forget.
Jenni, this is Josh Bernstein from Josh Bernstein Uncensored. First and foremost, it's horrible what has happened to your family, and my thoughts and prayers go out to you. But one of the mothers of the 13 said some choice words, shall we say, about Joe Biden, and then from that point basically said that she was going to go to Washington and she was not going to leave until he stepped down. Now, you being part of the Gold Star Moms, and I'm sure that you have a lot of people in your network, is that something that perhaps you may want to help kind of organize to make, instead of just one person's agony and one person's trials and tribulations be heard, how about many other Gold Star mothers and fathers joining with that one lady to really have a robust turnout in Washington? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I I think there's Gold Star families across America who are devastated, who are angry, who are hurt, who might feel betrayed or abandoned. And I think we do need to stand together. I think we need to really look at what we're standing together to do. We can't let this be Joe Biden's country.
No.
We can't let this country fall apart, whether it's Joe Biden or any other one person. And that's, I think, what I was really impressed with and proud of this past weekend, is realizing I still believe the goodness in America will win. I believe, if nothing else, this is an unfortunate wake-up call. A lot of America for the past 20 years has had very little awareness of what the price of freedom is. Most of America doesn't serve in the military. Most of America doesn't bury a soldier or a Marine.
Right.
Most of America kind of just can't be bothered. But now it bothers us, and it should bother us, and it should bother us to action. Now, whether or not we're going to talk about taking out a sitting politician, you better believe I think we should get better at who we elect into politics.
Oh,
I
for
hope
sure.
more of our veterans get into politics. I mean, my husband was the first sitting politician killed in action since the Civil War. He was a major and he was a mayor, and his service in both the military and politics made our community a better place. America has a huge disconnect to the military, politics, policy making. We've had how many presidents now leading us through a 20-year war as commander-in-chief that have never even been to boot camp? How many members of Congress have ever seen combat? Not enough. Now, I'm not saying I think every American needs to be in the military in order to be a good American. I've never been to boot camp. I don't think that at all. But I do think that more of our men and women in uniform, after they get out of that uniform, need to get into politics and policy. I'm not talking politicking and that kind of politics. I mean political elected office to make those policy changes, because we can kick one guy out of office or kick one lady out of office and another bad seat is going to keep coming in place. We as American people have to reform what we look for in our leaders, what we demand of our leaders, and then who we elect to put into those offices. And then, you know, how do we hold them accountable? Well, there's a lot of different ways I guess we could do that. But I think we as Gold Star families need to stand together. We as Americans need to stand together. I shouldn't be the only one devastated. My husband died for this country. That mother shouldn't have to stand alone because her child gave his life that day. I think what we need to do is stand together and ask some seriously pointed questions of our political leaders and of ourselves. What matters most to us as a country, and how do we put our money where our mouth is as everyday American citizens?
Well said. I have a couple of questions. I've been a little perturbed. I mean, I've watched as each body was removed from the aircraft. I watched the president look at his watch
5 times.
and I understand it was like 12, but that's neither here nor there. And now they're trying to spin this by saying, oh, he had a rosary around his wrist, and he was looking at the rosary.
Please.
Now, I'm not of that faith, but I don't think you wear a rosary around your wrist.
No.
So they're trying to spin that. But there were other American troops that were injured that day, and I haven't really heard much about them. How bad the injuries were. I know they took them to Bernstein in Germany, but I don't know anything more than that. If any of them are in critical condition or have been released and come back to the United States, I don't know those stories. I think the press, the journalists have let down this country once again when our bravest young people have moved in and tried to take I think the way that people should live and try to. I mean, it as you said, Jenny, and I mentioned this to you the other night. What was so sad is I watched all of these people handing out bottles of water. I watched them carrying babies. The lady Marines were taking care of babies. And I saw grown adult men, even though at my age, I would call them very young men at 20, picking up babies and helping them over the wall, and women giving up their children. I mean, this is, talk about gut-wrenching. I mean, nobody should have to live that way. And yet, where is the media on these stories? I want to know what happened to these babies. they obviously got back to the United States. Did their parents, were they reunited? Are they orphans now? You don't know. And these others. Now, having said that, Jenni, I know that it's a club that nobody ever wants to join. Is there any form of fellowship with people that are Gold Star families?
I think there's an instant fellowship by the sheer fact that we share a common bond. I've met other Gold Star wives or Gold Star spouses, Gold Star kids or parents, and there's something about, I don't have to say a word. I just know that you've been to Dover too.
Right.
I know that you've buried someone who's paid the price of freedom also. And, it's been really sobering for my kids. So you mentioned I've got 7 children. They were under 1 and barely 13 years old and all in the middle the day my husband died. And their world crashed that day. Their world fell apart completely. And here they are just devastated. Well, over the next several months, that first year after my husband died, we had an opportunity to be invited to several different events where other Gold Star families were also attending. And I think it was really eye-opening for them and for me to see, wow, there's thousands of Gold Star kids in this country. And that's a gut-wrenching feeling. Gary Sinise Foundation does a wonderful thing. They
Yes.
take the kids to Disney World and they celebrate and they just treat them like the gold that they are. But we've been on that trip one year after my husband died, and we sat in that beautiful Disney ballroom with just all of these people and this fun and these characters and this magic. And I remember just calculating the cost.
Yeah.
Every man, woman, and child in this room has buried someone to pay the price of freedom. So you talk about a fellowship. It's a very sacred fellowship. But I've also been so inspired. There's not a stronger group of people in America than those who have paid that price, because guess what? We know how expensive that price is, so we're not going to take it for granted. I have been motivated and uplifted, carried through some of my darkest moments by other Gold Star military survivors. And so it's a terrible club, like you said, that no one wants to belong to. But I have felt from the very moment I became a Gold Star widow, it's one of the most sacred honors in this country to say our family helped pay that price.
And I think a lot of people forget that there is a price to be paid. When they open up the borders and they say, hey, everybody come on in, enjoy the fruits of the labors. But everything that we have, all of the freedoms that we have, the liberties, the individual rights that we have, there was a price, and it was a heavy price. Yeah. And on a personal note, Jenni, how are your kids doing now? You said it's been almost 3 years.
Almost three years, and I'm not going to lie, it's been a rough 3 years. My husband died at the end of 2018. 2019 was just sheer pandemonium of ceremonies and cameras following us all around, and we just kind of got thrust into this fishbowl life. We started to settle down at the end of 2019, and then 2020 hit with the global pandemic, and the kids can't go to school, and football got canceled, and you can't see your friends. And then 2021 just feels like every day you turn on the news, it's one more absolute made-up headline, except they're real. So my kids, I think, are doing awesome. If you could give the list of what they've been through in the last 3 years of their life, I think you should give them all a gold medal, and I'd say that for every Gold Star kid. One thing I will say that's a beautiful opportunity my family's had, we're getting ready to build a new home thanks to the generosity of a local home builder and some of their subcontractors. They're helping us get the price down. And it's the first time in the past 3 years that my kids and I have had something to focus on building rather than something falling apart. And there's a great symbolism in that as I watch Afghanistan falling apart in the devastation, thinking, how then do we rebuild? How does each American family rebuild? What does that symbolism look like? I can't single-handedly rebuild the world. Can I rebuild and strengthen my home and then maybe help a neighbor or a friend? So my kids go up and down like any other kids. Sometimes their grief comes out as anger or sarcasm or snarkiness like any other kid. But for the most part, I am proud of them. I'm grateful for their resilience, and I'm really grateful to see many of their father's strengths in them, these sweet little babies of mine.
Jenni,
they remind me of him every day.
Jenni, I wanted to just touch base real quick on one thing. You mentioned that we want to get more military members to run for office and elected officials. And I know that you having 7 children, you probably wouldn't have the opportunity or the time to do it, but there's got to be other Gold Star moms, Gold Star dads out there that perhaps could start some type of political action committee on a grand scale nationally to help encourage some of these folks to run for office, because obviously these are patriots through and through, and these are folks that would be difference makers, and they would be much, much needed in Washington. So I was just wanting to see if if that's something that you'd consider.
We've talked about that. Yeah, there's another Gold Star widow who's amazing. Her name is Jane Horton. She is a powerhouse at the Pentagon. She's worked a lot with a lot of congressional leaders. She's created a Gold Star Family Fellowship position in Congress. So that one wouldn't be an elected position, but it would be, again, whether you're elected to the office or helping with policy, still the same movement. I know we've got some combat veterans in Congress. I hope that number rises. I know many of them are trying to encourage many of their veteran peers. So I would love to see that, whether it's through a PAC or whatever that organization, to be super bold. I would love to help train people in that regard. I don't want to run for the office, but I'd love to help people look at how do you campaign? How do you really develop what your platform and your principles are? How do you connect with the American people? I would love to see that something that comes in the future, that we could maybe have some workshops. We spend a lot of effort helping soldiers transition out when they're done in the military. We want them to find a civilian job or what have you. Maybe part of those career fairs could be considering politics and policy making. It won't be for everyone, just like the military is not for everyone. But there are some that it will be a perfect fit for, and that would apply to our veterans getting out of the service, as well as their living family members, and of course the surviving Gold Star family members. That's one thing I hope that is one of the beauties that can rise out of the ash of this disaster of the last month, really the last several years.
Jenny, Ron and I talk a lot about this, and Josh as well. Our faith really is foundational in our life. It's so very important to us. And I know that there's a lot of people in the military right now, you and your family, and where when there's no place to turn to, you always turn to your faith. And I just wanted to get an idea, just very briefly, because we only have a couple minutes left here.
Yeah.
But what's happening in our education system, where they're pulling people's faith apart, they're taking God out of the equation, they're removing this, and they're filling this vacuum with social type of engineering and sexual education, and they're trying to teach them and really tear apart the foundation of our country, which is our faith. And I just wanted to get
we're not going to have time to get an answer the music is playing.
I'll be brief. America is nothing without our faith. America
Amen.
is nothing
Amen.
without our faith.
And I have always felt, from my reading of the scripture, that this is the promised land that God talked about in the Old Testament.
for such a time as this.
Yes, exactly.
Call me back to talk about that.
We will. I count on it. I've got you on speed dial.
God bless you, Jenny.
God bless both
I
of
wish you
all.
nothing but the
God
best
bless
for you and
your
your
family.
family.
Jenny.
Thank you. I'll take all the prayers we can get with these sweet kids.
You've got them.
Amen.
Okay.
And thank you, Josh
thank
Bernstein from JoshBernsteinUncensored.com.
And
Thank you, Josh. Good night.
we're going out. Monday is another day. It's a holiday, but we're going to be here one way or another. So we will see you Monday on Fighting Back. And this is Hub Radio, and Mr. DeSante, thank you for driving this train. And
thank you, Ron Ludders.
And thank you, Ron. Thank you, Josh. And thank you, Mr. Ray Michaels. We'll see you Monday. Yeah. Radio Phoenix is an internet-based podcast platform providing numerous special interest programs reaching over 100,000 viewers per week. Hi, I'm Ron Ludders, executive producer of Hub Radio Phoenix. We don't pretend to be journalists, but we're not afraid to say what's on our minds. We thank you for watching, liking, sharing, and subscribing to Hub Radio Phoenix. Stay tuned, stay faithful, as the best is yet to come.